Episode 1. Paul Grayson wasn't a man who stood out in a crowd, and that suited him just fine. At just under 6 feet, with a frame that was solid but unremarkable, like a well-worn utility jacket, he blended well in the humdrum rhythm of Interpol's lower ranks. No fieldwork heroics, no cloak and dagger bravado. His days were spent threading diplomatic needles, handshakes, smoothing egos, and the occasional diplomatic nudge, communication, relationships, that sort of thing. This time, though, the assignment was simple enough. Fly to a Far East metropolis, hand over a sealed envelope, shake hands with the new department chief, and confirm the partnership would hold. 3 days, in and out. Civilian visa, no official fanfare. Odd, maybe, but this was a safe country, a mutual friend of the U.S. with visa courtesies baked into decades of goodwill. No red flags, not yet at least. The flight had landed late, the kind of bone-deep late where jet lag gnaws at your edges. Paul's hotel room, sterile, beige, faintly humming with air conditioning, offered no reprieve. Sleep wouldn't come. A drink, he thought. Something to dull the buzz in his skull. He grabbed his jacket, left his badge tucked in the safe, and slipped out into the neon-drenched night. The city thrummed around him, a labyrinth of towering glass and flickering signs in a script he couldn't read. It was past 10 p.m., the streets alive but hushed, like a beast settling into a restless doze. He wandered, boots scuffing against damp pavement, until he spotted a bar tucked into a narrow alley. Its sign a glowing red lantern swaying faintly in the breeze. But before he could cross the small parking lot, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Around the corner, under the sodium glow of a street lamp, a knot of high school boys loitered. 4 or 5 of them. A couple wore stiff dark jackets buttoned high, almost militaristic, their silhouettes sharp against the light. The others slouched in sloppy white shirts, untucked and wrinkled, sleeves rolled up like they'd just shed the day's rules. One kid, smaller, wiry, stood pinned in the middle, taking shoves and jeers. A classic bullying tableau. Paul intended to keep walking. He'd seen this dance before. City streets the world over had their petty dramas. Getting involved meant questions, explanations, and he wasn't exactly carrying a tourist's ID to flash. A Westerner sticking his nose in would draw eyes, maybe trouble, and flashing his Interpol badge over some teenage scuffle. Laughable. Still, unconsciously he slowed his steps, casting a sidelong glance as he drew closer, some old reflex tugging at him. When he was close enough to hear the low mutters and the scuff of shoes on asphalt, he stole a glance. The scene felt off. The smaller kid wasn't cowering, no flinch, no tremble. His hands were up, sure, but not in defense, more like he was shielding his face, hiding something. Paul's gut twitched. This wasn't fear. It was control. The bigger punks circled him, their taunts half-hearted, almost bored, as if they sensed the strangeness too, but couldn't place it. Paul kept moving, letting his pace carry him past, his eyes flicking over the group. Just kids, no weapons glinting, no real heat in their voices. They didn't spare him a glance, another sign this was a squall that'd fizzle out. He turned the corner, the bar's lantern glowing ahead, and exhaled. Nothing to see here. Then it hit. A sharp, jagged screech, slicing the quiet. Not a scream, not loud enough to wake the block, but wrong, like metal dragged over bone. Paul froze mid-step, his breath catching. It wasn't deafening, but it hit like a needle to the spine. He whipped around, eyes locking on the parking lot. One of the bigger kids, broad-shouldered in a dark jacket, was down, sprawled on the pavement like a marionette with its strings cut. "Oh no," Paul muttered under his breath. Cold weapon? Stun gun? A kid that size dropping that fast meant something nasty. He moved back, closing the gap as the others crowded their fallen friend, voices tangling in confusion. Then panic hit. They screamed, a raw animal sound, and bolted into the dark. All but one. Paul reached the kid, dropping to a knee. The boy lay still, face tilted skyward, his skin a sickly white under the street lamp's glare. No blood, no torn clothes, no obvious wounds. Paul's hands hovered, checking for cuts, finding none. Stun gun, maybe, he murmured, trying to steady his pulse. Knocked him cold. He hooked an arm under the shoulders, lifting, and froze. The body sagged, too soft, too loose. A kid this size, 160 pounds, give or take, should have had some resistance. Instead, it was like hefting a bag of wet dough, or a damn squid, flopping bonelessly. Paul's stomach twisted. Worse, the stomach beneath felt wrong. Not flesh, not muscle, but something slick and yielding, like jelly quivering under a knife. A thick, hot flood of blood oozed out of Boy's mouth silently, gushing in a torrent, staining his pale lips crimson and pooling black on the pavement below. Paul recoiled, nearly dropping the body, his pulse hammering. That much blood, pooling black on the pavement, and no cough. Damn. Paul's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd seen death before. Gunshots in Lyon, a knifing in Prague. But this was something else, something bad. The kid might have been gone before help could even arrive. He forced a breath, shoving down the panic. Ambulance, now. He fumbled for his phone, then stopped. One of the punks hadn't run. A skinny kid, all elbows and wide eyes, stood frozen 10 yards off, staring at the blood. His chest heaved, and then he erupted, a torrent of frantic words spilling out in a language Paul couldn't catch. "Ambulance!" Paul barked, jabbing a finger at him. The kid didn't flinch, just yelled, a frantic stream of words, sharp and guttural, drowning Paul out. "Call ambulance!" Paul tried again, but the kid was lost in his own terror, ignoring him. Then, mid-rant, his eyes widened. He fumbled for his phone, stammering, "Q, Q." "Yes!" Paul seized on it. "Q, yes!" He remembered that word, ambulance. Relief flared, then snuffed out. A high-pitched scream, shrill and piercing, rained down from above. Paul's head snapped up, half expecting some mythical harpy swooping from the rooftops. Instead, a middle-aged woman leaned over a balcony railing 3 stories up, her face a mask of horror. She unleashed a rapid-fire stream of words, crackling, meaningless to him, her hands flailing toward the scene below. Paul's gaze darted between her, the eerily soft body in his arms, and the trembling kid dialing his phone. The night had unraveled, and whatever this was, it wasn't ending quietly. To be continued.